The grand ballroom shimmered with golden chandeliers and polished marble floors that reflected the brilliance of the evening. Waiters in crisp uniforms carried silver trays of champagne glasses, weaving their way through the clusters of wealthy guests. The air was filled with laughter, polite conversations, and the soft hum of a live orchestra playing classical music in the corner. It was a night of celebration, the CEO's annual gala, an event that every powerful name in the city wanted to attend. But among the glitter and grandeur, in a dimly lit corner near the tall velvet curtains, sat a young girl in a wheelchair. She was the CEO's daughter. Dressed in a delicate lavender gown with sparkling beads stitched into the fabric, she looked like a little princess. Her brown hair was tied neatly with ribbons, and her eyes, though beautiful, carried a deep sadness that no jewels could hide. As people walked past, she forced herself to smile politely, but nobody stopped. The other children at the party chased each other around the tables, laughing and playing games. Every time she glanced at them, her heart clenched a little tighter. She wanted to join them, to feel normal, but her legs didn't move like theirs. The chair beneath her wasn't just metal and wheels, it was a constant reminder of the life she wished she could have. Adults whispered as they passed her by. Some looked at her with pity, others avoided looking altogether, as if acknowledging her would break the illusion of the perfect evening. She overheard fragments of conversations, business deals, luxury vacations, gossip about new investments. No one asked how she was doing. No one noticed how alone she felt. Her father, the CEO, stood at the center of the room, shaking hands and smiling for the cameras. He was a powerful man, admired and respected by everyone, but in his busyness, he didn't see his daughter shrinking into the shadows. She tugged slightly at the hem of her dress, lowering her head. Tears pricked her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She didn't want to ruin his night by making a scene. The sound of laughter from the other children hit her like a wave. She imagined what it would be like to run with them, to feel the rhythm of her feet against the floor, to spin around in her gown without fear of falling. But imagination wasn't enough. Her small fingers curled tightly around the armrest of her wheelchair as she whispered to herself, "Maybe no one will ever want to play with me." And so, in a room full of hundreds, the CEO's daughter sat utterly invisible, her heart aching for a moment of belonging. The night carried on with speeches, applause, and the clinking of glasses. Guests swayed with the rhythm of the orchestra, their conversations a blend of business strategies and social compliments. The CEO lifted his glass for a toast, and everyone raised theirs in unison. Just then, the heavy doors at the back of the ballroom opened, and in stepped a man who looked different from everyone else. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit or expensive watch. His tie was simple, his shoes slightly worn, and beside him stood a little girl in a bright yellow dress, her hand clasped firmly in his. He was a single dad, invited as a business acquaintance but clearly out of place among the glittering crowd. Unlike the others, his eyes weren't searching for the most important people in the room. Instead, they landed on the quiet figure in the corner, the CEO's daughter in her wheelchair. His daughter noticed her too, tugging gently at his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, "why is she sitting all alone? Doesn't anyone want to play with her?" The father looked at his child, then at the lonely girl. He could have brushed it off, told his daughter to stay quiet, but instead, he felt a pull in his heart. He bent down and whispered back, "Then maybe we should go and sit with her." They walked across the room, past curious glances and whispers from the other guests. The little girl in the wheelchair looked up in surprise, unsure if they were really approaching her. For a moment, she thought they would just pass by like everyone else. But then the man knelt down so that his eyes met hers. "Hello," he said warmly, his voice soft and kind. "Would it be okay if we sat with you?" The young girl's lips parted in shock. No one had asked her anything all evening, not even the simplest question. She nodded shyly, her eyes glistening. His daughter immediately plopped down beside her, grinning. "Hi, I'm Emma. What's your name?" The CEO's daughter hesitated, then whispered, "Lily." "Lily," Emma repeated cheerfully, as if she had just discovered the most beautiful word in the world. "That's such a pretty name. Do you like chocolate cake?" "Because I saw the biggest one at the dessert table." For the first time that night, Lily laughed. It wasn't forced or polite, it was real. The sound caught her off guard, and she covered her mouth, blushing. Emma giggled too, and soon, the two girls were chatting as if they had known each other forever. The father watched them with a gentle smile, occasionally asking Lily about her favorite colors, books, or hobbies. Unlike others, he didn't look at her wheelchair, he looked at her face, her spirit. He spoke to her as if she were like any other child, because she was. Slowly, the room began to notice. The orchestra's tune faded as eyes turned toward the corner. Whispers began again, but this time, the tone was different. People who had ignored Lily now found themselves watching in silence, wondering why it had taken a stranger to show kindness they themselves had withheld. And Lily, for the first time in what felt like forever, felt seen. From across the room, the CEO caught sight of the commotion. At first, he frowned. His daughter was always quiet, always withdrawn. But then he saw her face, glowing with joy as she laughed with Emma and her father. Something inside him shifted. He had spent years protecting her, believing that the world would never understand or accept her. He had built walls around her, walls of silence and distance, but in doing so, he had also kept her isolated. Tonight, for the first time, he saw what those walls had cost her. The CEO's throat tightened as tears blurred his vision. He excused himself from his circle of colleagues and walked toward the corner. The guests watched in stunned silence as the powerful man, known for his cold composure, approached his daughter with trembling steps. When Lily saw him, her smile faltered, afraid she might be in trouble. But to her shock, her father knelt beside her, just as the single dad had done. He cupped her face gently and whispered, "My precious girl, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she leaned into his embrace. Emma's father placed a hand on the CEO's shoulder, quietly saying, "Sometimes, all it takes is seeing her, not the chair, not the difference, just her." The CEO nodded, his voice breaking. "Thank you. You gave her something I couldn't." The atmosphere in the hall transformed. Guests who had ignored Lily felt the sting of guilt. One by one, they began to approach, offering kind words, asking her about her favorite things. Some children, encouraged by Emma's example, invited her to join in games they adapted so she could participate. For Lily, it was overwhelming, but in the best way possible. She had gone from invisible to being the center of warmth and acceptance. The wheelchair hadn't disappeared, but for once, it wasn't the first thing people saw. That night didn't just change Lily's life. It changed her father's. The CEO realized that power, wealth, and influence meant nothing if his daughter felt unloved and unseen. And the single dad? He didn't just make a difference in Lily's world. He unknowingly opened the door to a new friendship, one built on kindness, respect, and understanding. From that night onward, Lily was never ignored again. She carried in her heart the memory of a moment when one act of kindness turned a lonely night into the beginning of a brighter future.